All right. Well, welcome back, everybody, to FC Build. Since many of you may be new to FC Build, I'm going to start with a short introduction to Foundation Capital. We are a 26-year-old venture capital firm. We have over 400 portfolio companies, and 30 of them have gone public. In our enterprise practice, we partner with entrepreneurs working on problems up and down the stack, from cloud, data, automation, AI, DevOps, cybersecurity, vertical specific solutions, and many others. We also lead seeds and Series A's, usually before a company has any revenue or even a product. Basically, we invest in dreamers with really big dreams and work with them to make it real. And so if that describes you, then please get connected to us. This conference, FC Build, this is our second year doing this, and it's an opportunity for folks to share their wisdom, folks who have already done it. And that's why I'm super excited to have Manjula and Aaron here with me today to share their experiences building customer-centric organizations. Manjula is currently CCO at PagerDuty, and she was formerly SVP at Salesforce, and before that, VP at Cisco. And Aaron is CCO at Anaplan, and she spent a long stint at ADP as the SVP of Client Success. And we'll ask them some questions about their backgrounds in just a little bit. There's a lot of changes in the last 18 months. There's a lot of changes in the role of customer success. And so I'm excited to explore both of those topics today. Maybe we'll start with Aaron. You spent almost 14 years at ADP. Why did you leave for Anaplan, and what attracted you? Tell us a bit more about your background and the opportunity.
Yeah, sure, Joanne. Thanks for having me. So I spent a pretty amazing career at ADP, 14 years. I was able to do a lot of different things. I started in a very high growth segment of their business, doing delivery in their implementation team, in their PEO business, Total Source. And that gave me the opportunity to work with their sales organizations, work with their customers, really start to think about the whole concept of selling value versus products. Because at the end of the day, this whole co-employment relationship that I worked within, the business unit that was responsible for co-employment. And the value there is really about protecting businesses against risk and helping them to deliver Fortune 500 benefits to their employees, even if they're small companies. And I was able to do implementation, retention, which was a really new role and kind of a new way of thinking. And then also help lead their customers, basically what was their customer success team at the time. Mm-hmm. I moved over to the enterprise space where I worked with their larger companies, their larger customers, and led a P&L in their services space. And so when I moved into that part of the company, it was a very product-driven company. And that business unit was really struggling against a high increase in competitors. They were looking at churn in their customer base. They were trying to launch new products, and they did not have a focused function on customer success. It was kind of relationship management based. And so about halfway through the second half of my career at ADP, if you will, I had the opportunity to build a true customer success organization that was really focused on defending the base. Mm-hmm. And I built that team. I built the leadership team. We built the organization. We pushed the entire concept of customer success across the business unit and really worked to educate other parts of ADP on what customer success meant. And frankly, ADP's now, I think, embraced it, and they're really working towards building it into their core. So I did a lot of what I wanted to get done at ADP. And when Anaplan reached out to me, it was an opportunity to kind of do a little bit of it all over again, but in a very high growth environment in a true SaaS type of organization. And I was excited to kind of pick up and get to take a lot of what I'd learned at ADP into such a high growth business. And so it was kind of a no-brainer to make the leap to a company like Anaplan with such a strong, powerful product, and then get over there and help them mature their customer success organization and get them ready for really, really big growth.
That's great. We'll explore the definition and how customer success has evolved in just a little bit. But before that, Angela, do you mind sharing a bit about your decisions and your background? Why did you move, especially from a much larger organization to a slightly smaller one?
Yeah, thank you, Joanne. And I'm so excited to be here today. I started my career in IT. And if I look at my career, I joined Cisco when it was 500 million, left Cisco when it was 50 billion, joined Salesforce when it was 5 billion, left Salesforce when it was 17 billion. So I'm somebody that loves growth, innovative, and driving growth businesses. And I'll talk a little bit about my career and then talk about why PagerDuty.
Sounds good.
I started my career in IT. And when I started my career in IT and I was at Cisco, we were the first B2B e-commerce in the world. And I was spending a lot of time with customers and realized that that's what makes me tick, the customer centricity. And I had the honor and pleasure of learning so much under John Chambers, who was the CEO of Cisco, where customer centricity and the voice of the customer were so important. So I actually left my career in IT and moved to strategy consulting, engineering, sales, and services in my whole journey at Cisco so that I could build general management skills but be customer centric. And when Cisco became $50 billion, the real innovators and the developer, the two leaders who truly build customer success in the world, Mr. Mark Benioff and Maria Martinez, who was then the president of customer success. Maria reached out to me and asked me to see if I would be open to joining Salesforce. And Salesforce, to me, was where customer success was invented. Mark Benioff, as he says, was the first customer success manager when he first sold his product. And we'll talk more about what customer success is. And I think my 5 years at Salesforce were the best training ever of what does customer success mean and what does it mean to drive a platform company moving from product to a platform company in the SaaS business, because it's very different than some of the older businesses like Cisco was. So why did I join PagerDuty? 3 things. Number one was, if you think about expansion and dollar-based net retention, that's what grows companies. It's about the dollar-based net retention. That's a huge engine, not only for growth, but for company valuation. We just announced our results day before yesterday. Our dollar-based net retention is greater than 120.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Who's at the heart of that? Customer success. It's about retention and expansion. And it was a huge opportunity for me to come in based on the experience I got at Salesforce and the experience of customer centricity to come and become the chief customer officer of PagerDuty, which at that time was 200 million last year and growing to $1 billion at greater than 30% growth. And we just did our run rate of 300 million. We just passed that in Q3. And so to be at the heart and the C-suite of a company that is driving to expansion, that was number one. We started as basically, as you know, and you have a PagerDuty stock, Joanne, we started in basically in what we call as events management, right? When there's an event, you solve for it. But we are becoming the platform for Operations Cloud. So it's about expansion. It's about becoming a multi-product company. It's becoming the Operations Cloud when digital transformation is accelerating. The number 2 reason that I joined PagerDuty was the CEO and the CRO. And by the way, I know the CRO very well from my Cisco and Salesforce days. We worked together in both companies. Have a vision that customer success is at the heart of this expansion. And when you have the meeting of the minds and the CEO and the board is thinking that way, it's the best platform for a chief customer officer. And number 3 is what I learned at Salesforce was not only customer centricity, but data is king. And at the heart of customer success is data and data science. And the power that PagerDuty has of having 600 APIs and all the data flowing through it at the center of it, huge opportunity to really run a customer success group with data at its foundation. So there were three big reasons that I joined it, and it's been a blast last year and a half.
Very thoughtful process. I want to go back to some of the things you touched on. And the first is probably just defining what customer success actually means in this case, right? We've heard things like reducing churn, which was, very much talked about in a lot of places. And there's a lot of other aspects beyond that. And maybe we'll start with Erin. How are you thinking about the definition of customer success?
So I kind of go back to the original definition of customer success, because I still think it carries a lot of water today. It is really helping your customers achieve their desired outcome with the appropriate experience. Now that has evolved a lot. And when we think about desired outcomes as they were maybe back in the days when Benioff was the first customer success manager, because I studied at the knee of Gainsight and Nick Mehta and Lincoln Murphy's first book. That was really where I learned everything I needed to know to kind of start my first organization. But I don't think that's changed that much today. It's just now customers expect those desired outcomes to be a lot more measurable, a lot more meaningful, and truly, truly impact their businesses because you are partnering with them, because they are using your products, your services. So in my mind, that's what you're trying to accomplish with customer success and all of the outcomes that means for your business. If you're delivering those things for your customers, you will have retention, you will have expansion, you will have growth, you will have customers who are advocating on your behalf to other customers and to the market. So in my mind, that's what customer success is. I don't think it has changed from the core of its beginnings. It's just evolved.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think there is a shift that customer success is now a core part of the growth engine, and some of that is very much cultural, right? And many of our founders who are here with us today ask the question of, hey, like how much should I be investing in customer success? How and when and why and who possibly? Angela, you shared a few different perspectives. Any advice for founders here?
Yeah, it's a really, really good question, because we went IPO 2 years ago. And pre-IPO companies and post-IPO companies are very different. And what is Erin really saying? She says customer success is a very cool term nowadays. If I can say it, it's a very popular term. Everybody calls their organization that is customer facing outside of sales customer success. But if you're going to be true to ourselves, customer service does not equal to customer success. Most pre-IPO companies create customer service organizations, not customer success organizations. And what is customer service? It's defensive move. It's a call that the customer will make in terms of questions they may have technical, support organizations, expert service, not quite professional services, but expert services to drive the implementation. But if you have a SaaS business, you got to think about customer centricity and the customer life cycle. Not the sales cycle, but the customer life cycle. And sales and customer success have to work together. So what is customer success? Because as soon as I came in within the first 4 months, I actually restructured my organization because it was very focused on customer service, it was a defensive, not strategic.
What was the restructuring?
The change was we moved it on a completely new operating model. The people skills, you don't want people that are great at responding to technical questions. You want consultants who are going to go and drive to the point Erin is saying, understand deployment, understand adoption, create the stickiness, and before you go through the next renewal cycle, are helping find opportunities for the next expansion that they hand over to sales. so that you are really driving, even if you're a product-led company, you're really driving multiple expansions before the next renewal. And the skill set of a customer success manager is with a consulting background, a consultative, and really understanding the use of data and the use of what the customer is to drive that customer adoption. You're moving from just expert services where you are just implementing a product to actually changing the operating model for your customer. It's very different than what customer service is. And I would urge all the startup companies to start, don't go towards that restructuring, because you can drive proactive expansion for your customers. That is a very high cost to get a customer versus just being defensive and only focused on responding to customer questions versus being proactive and actually driving customer outcomes and business value for the customer. And customers don't buy a product just because it fits into their architecture. Customers buy product for a business reason. And it's the customer success managers who really understand that at the depth, at scale.
It makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the pieces that would be really helpful, and either of you feel free to kind of touch upon this, is the profile that you're talking about as someone who's a consultant. Any tips on finding an ideal candidate and what to look for? Do you want more sales orientation? Because there is some of that, right? Do you want, what kind of backgrounds are you looking for when you see success in your org?
So I'll jump in real quickly and say, that a long time ago, there was a book published called The Challenger Sale.
Yeah.
And it really speaks to the profile of the individual, not necessarily their background or their skill set, but rather the profile. It's the profile of the individual that's willing to come in, be a learner, really understand what it is that your product can deliver by way of value, and then connect the dots to your customers and what they need. And so a lot of times you'll walk into a conversation with a customer and you'll ask them, what are you hoping to accomplish? What were the reasons that you purchased this product? And a lot of times they may not even have the right answers. They may not even know. They're focused on implementing the solution and getting it live because they're paying for it now as in a SaaS model. They've paid for it as soon as they've signed the contract and sent the purchase order over. And they're focused on now the nuts and bolts of getting the solution live. You need a customer success manager who has the profile to be able to come in and understand the industry, the business, do the research, be a learner, and then understand the kinds of problems that your product solves so that they can put those as hypotheses in front of the customer to say, I understand people in your space probably have this kind of problem. Let's start building out a plan to help you achieve success and actually achieve that ROI. And so like Manjula, I had to also do some restructuring when I came into Anaplan. We were a largely services organization. We started as professional services with the customer success label. And we needed to pull that services piece out and start to focus on a profile that would understand the business value of our products and be comfortable having conversations up and down the organization, challenging their economic buyers and their champions to understand what they were trying to accomplish. And we also needed to pull those people further up in the sales cycle. Manjula mentioned that you have your sales and your CS teams working very closely together. If you're doing it correctly, you're bringing your CS people into the pre-sales process to talk about that value and capture that value so that you can pull that thread through the implementation where you're going to probably have a lot of very hands-on doer type people at the customer involved in the implementation, but keep that economic buyer and that champion included and involved so that you're able to go back and say, okay, here's what we're accomplishing. Here's the outcome. And here's the value that we can provide for you, even greater value if you now expand into this line of business or you expand onto this product with us. So just like Manjula mentioned, it's this kind of virtuous cycle of value selling, value capture, value realization, come back again and expand based on those.
I'm going to pull in a question from the audience, which is related to this. And Perry asks, do you see customer success becoming responsible for renewals and expansion in the near future? And if so, how do you see the relationship with sales evolving?
I love this question because as we were talking, I wanted to define what is customer success and what are the various organizations that report to customer success. And then we'll answer that question. So what does customer success have and what do I have in my team? We have success managers, who are called CSMs. We have renewals. Renewals sits within my organization. So yes, we own renewals, we own churn and downgrade. The numbers that go to Wall Street, the buck stops with me. PagerDuty University, the education of the customer, professional services, technical support, and data science. All of that is customer success. So do you see customer success becoming responsible for renewals? Absolutely. We own it. And expansion in the near future. This is really, really important. Customer success, folks, this organization is not based on MBOs of the company, and they're not an MBO plan. They have metrics, and they're on a variable comp, just like sales is. So expansion, what is the role of customer success in expansion? The role of customer success is qualified opportunities. The deal will be closed by sales. They're not sellers. They have to become trusted advisor to the customer. But if they're driving through the use case, and to Erin's point, driving to understanding the business use cases that our products have been bought for, they know the next opportunity and can source and recommend, especially if you become multi-product, on what are the products that will solve them. They're the hottest pipe leads for the sales because they're so well qualified.
Do you have, as a follow-up to that, is anyone in your organization quota carrying then?
We don't call them quota carrying. We have a variable comp. The variable comp is on churn and downgrade, on deployment and adoption, and then we have an over-the-top extra comp for sourced expansion opportunities.
Got it. Okay. So there is a lot of incentive alignment there.
Yes.
I also noticed that you said data science is part of your org. Is that specific to your org, or does data science cut across other organizations as well? How does that work?
So we have a data science in our product team. We work very, very, very closely with product. That's the other thing that is super important for the CEOs that are listening to us.
Yeah.
We are the voice of the customer. There is a lot of change happening in the market. We have the ear to the ground. So the product roadmap, the product enhancements, the voice of the customer, and the relationship between customer success and product is very, very deep in engineering.
Got it.
So it's super important. I forget the question you asked because I set the context, but you had a question.
The data science, is that specific to your
data science. So yes, the product team has data science, so does mine.
Got it.
But when we go into customers and tell them the ROI on how are they using our product, what is the business value that Erin was saying, it's driven by data science.
Yeah.
So a lot of that data science is with us about how customers are using the product, how we can upsell, what is their propensity to buy, and what are they at risk, which we call the early warning system that all sits within my organization.
Makes sense. Erin, is your org structured differently? Can you share a bit about?
So very, very similar incentive alignment, very similar makeup of our teams. We are an interesting bunch at Anaplan because there are many of our team is actually trained at Anaplan. And so we have data scientists almost all over the place that are doing this metrics analysis. So I get a lot of goodness from the team on how our customers are using, what's the propensity to buy, what's the next potential product or line of business we may expand into. We use a lot of Anaplan models for that. And a lot of those are developed by the team in the field. So that's fantastic. I have renewals, I have professional services. One really interesting way that Anaplan is set up that I actually love is our technical support, what we call customer care, actually sits in our product organization. So it reports into our global technology officer. And what I love about that is because those are such reactive types of things that come in, it's a direct line into product, and a product is very much directly responsible for reducing those calls that come in that are reactive, that are not value add. And it allows in my organization to focus more on the value added deployments, adoption, expansion. My team is, they're actually compensated on expand for their pod, so that they're combined with the business. We comp at the team level, so you don't get the individual, oh, that business went out of business, and so it wasn't my fault. They get to work together as a team, and when they back each other up, they get rewarded as a team. We have weekly conversations around the pipeline that is generated from customer success. As Angela mentioned, like that pipeline is gold, because those are your folks that are trusted advisors with your customers. They're very close to qualifying those leads. We recently rolled out a more technical team, which is responsible for platform advisory and adoption. This is the team that is going to help us with ensuring that our customers are taking responsibility for enabling themselves and becoming self-sufficient on the platform, and helping with developing a maturity model on the platform. We also have community, which sits in our space. So community is where we do all of our community engagements, all of our Anaplan ecosystem. And there's one that I think is incredibly important. And as you are creating, as all of you founders are out there creating your customer success organizations, customer success operations is really, really key. And Manjula, do you have a customer? I'm sure you do. CS Ops is something that is absolutely critical. You need that common central team that is looking out across your entire organization, creating the playbooks, operationalizing those playbooks, delivering on the metrics, helping you to understand what that strategy and evolution is going to be for your team. So CS Ops, I can't say enough about how important that is to the success of any customer success organization. So I think that covered. We also have renewals. I think I mentioned.
That's thank you. That was very
comprehensive. Joanne, if I could just add one point, which I didn't
Sure.
cover. Erin brought up a very good point about support. Support reports to me, and it has a very close link to product. And that is why it's very important, the customer success managers and support. And that's why my organization is so deeply engaged with support and engineering. I just wanted to bring that point up.
That's a really good point.
Yes, I just wanted to, if it's sitting within customer success, that interlock has to be deep, or it sits within product.
Yeah.
One of the things that's common between both of your organizations is that the role of customer success, and therefore the interplay with other departments, is there because there's a culture around the importance of customer success, right? Whether at the CEO level and the board level. Now, for companies that may not have this culture, how do you think about advising someone who may be responsible for success to change that? Like, what are some tips and tricks to elevate the role of customer success in organizations?
I think it's about building credibility. Who are you and who do you want to be? And that's not just success. It's about, you think about IT and the value of IT. Sometimes organizations don't have as much value of IT as other organizations do.
Yeah.
So if you're in customer success, drive outcomes for the customers and make yourself important to the top line of the company on the growth of the company. If you're going to be reactive as a member or a leader, you'll always be in the back. If you lean in and you really drive outcomes and take accountability to churn, take accountability for pipeline, take accountability for customer outcomes, the value will automatically get recognized because it'll result in numbers. I think it's fundamental that customer success, if you're part of it or you own it, you're metrics driven and you're not MBO driven. Because if you're metrics driven, you can link it directly to the top line of the company.
That's right. That's right.
I completely agree. And I would underscore that bringing the data forward. So I actually built a customer success organization in an environment like you described, Joanne, where it was maybe not as well understood what the benefit was, or even what customer success was and what they were responsible for. And I used to actually tell my team all the time, gentle pressure relentlessly applied. And we are going to drive activities and consistent behaviors within the team. And as we do that, we're going to produce data that we're going to be able to tie to results for the business. And so then it was about correlating the data to results. And as I was exiting ADP, we actually were working with our sales team to help them understand that we were actually generating a large number of customer success qualified leads that they weren't even aware of. It wasn't a process that we had. The sales team was actually updating these leads in Salesforce and saying that they had been qualified by a CS person. And as we were showing the amount of business that we'd actually brought into the sales organization that we had generated as qualified leads, they were shocked. They were very surprised. And if I look back on my time at ADP, we drove a lot of cultural change and a lot of changes in the way they were thinking by just driving the consistent activity and then tying the numbers that we were producing to those activities. And that correlation, I think, changed the perspective.
That's great. That's great that you were able to do that. One question I had, there's a lot of change, right? In the last 18 months, there's changes in the market and hiring. We'll explore that momentarily. There's also this increase in discussions around product-led growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how does that impact the role of customer success? Does it change what you're describing, and or how tell us more about that? And feel free to either one of you can go.
Yeah, we grew up as a product-led growth company. And if you know PagerDuty, a lot of engineers and DevOps bought PagerDuty, and it was a bottoms-up sale, not a top-down sale. So I call it a cult. There's a cult out there in terms of followers of PagerDuty who go company to company and they take PagerDuty along. So how does product-led growth and in-app product buying get combined with a go-to-market engine? And customer success, even with a no touch, is very critical. And here is how I run my customer success organization, as does some other companies, as you drive it to scale. You have a pyramid. You've got your top strategic customers, and yet you want to have an efficient cost to serve. So you have CSMs, you have renewal managers, professional services, all of that for the top of the pyramid. But a lot of the product-led growth is for the bottom of the pyramid, which may be a large company that is buying a lot of different, and you have different orgs. And that's where you drive it with digital touch. So I have an entire scale business where I've actually taken a partner and we are using data science to see what are the customers that are at risk, what are the customers that need high adoption, which are the ones that are high growth. And we do a combination of digital and human touch to drive adoption for the customer. So product-led road is no touch if you think about it. And we map it with either high touch, if it's a high growth account and we want to take it into becoming a big customer, or it is a digital touch. So don't think about customer success as only human touch. You have to think about it. And that's why data science is so important, because you're figuring out risk and how you're consuming the product and all of that. And you're accordingly human touching or digital touching a customer and customer success.
Very well said. Erin, anything to add?
I guess the only thing I would add, just to go back to your initial question, what does it mean for CS? It means the more efficient delivery of customer success, because now you have the product acting in certain ways that drive the adoption, that drive the utilization, that drive the behaviors on the customer part that are going to make them more sticky, that are going to make them more successful in the product. So when I think about also the digital touch, that ability to support that long tail of small customers, but also actually driving behaviors with the end user interfacing with your product that will position them for more success, which will then allow you to make your CS team more efficient, both up and down that pyramid of customer segmentation.
Absolutely. And one of the other changes that we've seen in the last 18 months is also just the role of customer success and hiring for customer success, right? A lot of companies struggle with this, especially because we've moved to a, possibly distributed workforce model, and because the labor market has gone so much harder and tighter. What has your experiences been, and any advice for founders?
Keep your network, like make sure you work your network, make sure you have a presence out on the social networks, make sure you're leveraging all of the platforms you have, get to events, and whether it's virtually or physically, make sure your company is out there as one that people know and want to come work for. And that would probably be my advice, is just try to be out there and be present and driving that network. You'll find that the whole customer success community is a small world. And we all kind of know each other, and we all kind of go through these circles. And we're also very open with our advice and our experiences and our vulnerabilities. We're very transparent about the challenges that we're looking to solve. And I think if you're out there driving recruiting efforts and they see you being that kind of a leader and that having that kind of a culture, I think it makes it that much easier to attract people to your company.
Very good advice.
As I moved from the big brand of Salesforce and the big brand of Cisco, I think I really relate to the startups in terms of a smaller brand like PagerDuty. And in the past, we really thought about, much bigger companies thought about the culture of the company and putting it out there. The point of view on equity, the point of view of social outreach, the point of view of people's values. And I think that time has gone closer and closer to the starting of a company than worrying about it later on or articulating it when the company becomes of size. And if you want to attract people, I've hired a lot of people since I've joined. And a lot of them talk about, I joined PagerDuty for its culture. Because we are so articulate about championing the customer, our points of view on IDE, running together, acknowledging and owning the core values. And you're going to attract like-minded people that will stay with you. And you got to think about employee life cycle, just like you're thinking about customer life cycle. What are you going to retain? And if each of us are little Hollywood squares in a Zoom call, that sense of belonging is not there. What are you doing in terms of why did they join? What's their career goals? What are their values? And I would encourage founders and startup companies to really think about putting their values out there, because that's what will attract the employees that'll come in. And I completely agree with Erin. It's the network, but everyone has a lot of options. And you come for values, and you'll come for where you're comfortable.
Yep. I think one of the benefits that startups do have is that the mission and the dream is so large in comparison to where they are today, that there is so much upside they can be selling, right? And I think that is one benefit that I see founders leveraging and could leverage even more. There's a question around the community of customer success leaders and practitioners. I think, Erin, you mentioned it's a small community. Are there any official or specific communities you recommend founders to check out?
So I think if you go out and start pulling on this thread, you'll find your way to a lot of different communities. I mean, following, of course, Nick Mehta, CEO of Gainsight, he's one I would recommend. There's another community on LinkedIn. I think it's called Gain, Grow, and Share, maybe. Success Hacker is another one that I see posting just a lot of wisdom and a lot of sharing. So those would be, I think, 3 that I would recommend just checking out. And then you're going to find your way to a lot of others as you do that as well.
Nick Mehta is the biggest networker I have ever known in my life. He knows everything about customer, CCOs, and the teams. I would add one more in addition to Erin. It's a network called Ecosystems.
Yes.
Chad runs that, and he's got a network of CCOs and CROs, and he has fantastic forums there as well. But I think those are the 3 or 4 that have really bubbled up to the top.
That's great. Thanks for those tactical advice. One topic I want to touch upon before we run out of time is you guys must get a lot of demand of your time from people who are building customer success software, right? Solutions that could potentially help you solve problems. What are some of the problems that you face that startup founders should think about if they're thinking about building a customer success software solution?
I'd say two things. Firstly, it's very interesting you say that because before I joined PagerDuty, I was interviewed as a as somebody in customer success for PagerDuty go into the customer success business from engineering. And we just launched that a couple of quarters ago, and we've got some of the biggest deals with some of the biggest top 50 customers in the world. And why did we get that? And I want to share it as a use case. What's happening in the world right now? For the folks that have all in startup and why customer success and support. Every company is becoming digital, whether it's healthcare and doing a faster FDA approval, whether it's shopping, whether it's discovery of Fox or Disney and streaming. Every industry, financial institutions where every seconds matter. And what is super important and why is PagerDuty moving from just DevOps to customer service is because they have to interact with each other in real time. So technologies that bring that together are very relevant, not just for customer success, but success is looking for how do they integrate with the software platform of their company. And if I think about it as a customer success leader, and that's why we got into that space and it's growing so fast, because it's all about customer experience and the relationship of customer experience and customer retention, and every second matters, and seconds is money. But me as a customer success manager, customer success and a chief customer officer, I need a 360 view of the customer. So if you're building a product in isolation, it's not going to work. You must have APIs so it's seamless to integrate. The more siloed your product is, the more the customer success leaders are not going to look at you because every customer is looking at a 360 view. Salesforce is a top player there, but there's so many opportunities on that platform and others, all the way from chatbots for an automation. There's so much opportunity for automation. There's so much opportunity for customer experience, but the product cannot be built in isolation. It must be easy to implement with APIs so that the chief customer officer has a full view of the customer, as does the company.
Makes a lot of sense. Erin, how can a vendor get your attention?
So everything that Manjula just said is so true. And I was actually asked recently to just have a look at a product because they wanted my opinion on it. And what Manjula just talked about, the creation of insights, leveraging data that pulls information from all of the systems in our ecosystem and then provides us with an overview of our customer and can make us more efficient and make us smarter about what's happening in our customer base and where the risk is and where the opportunities are. That kind of product, that kind of offering is incredibly, incredibly powerful. And so that was not supposed to be a sales call. That was supposed to be a, hey, give me your opinion on this. I just joined this company. And it has now gone a little bit further down the path of us trying to understand if this is maybe something we want to leverage. So when you really understand what we do and you really understand the problems that we are trying to solve for our customers, and you can help us do that in a much more complete, easier way, that's going to get our attention.
That's great. That's great. We just have 1 minute left, so I want to leave our audience with some parting words of wisdom. Any advice for our founders?
My advice to founders is start with the customer. We have founders who think about amazing ways of developing technology. Flip it on its head. Start with the customer and think about the customer lifecycle as you're growing your company versus just the product lifecycle.
Yep, I don't think I would add anything else. I think if you start with that customer lens first, you'll start out with success.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, ladies, both for joining me today. I learned a ton, and our audience did too. Really appreciate your time, and congratulations on your successes. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.